Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday. It is 4 p.m. ET, and you have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. And I am so pleased you are here. I am your host, as always, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 15 going on 16. I sent in book 16 today. It's 15 going on 16 novels of suspense. My current book is The House Guest, which is cleverly displayed behind me. And my upcoming book is One Wrong Word. You can see it's sort of a cool Facebook looking thing. Book face thing comes out February the 6th, and I am so excited about that. But today, it is not about me. It is about the fantastic, wonderful, marvelous, brilliant Ashley Elston and her new book, First Lie Wins, which is one of the buzziest books around right now. It is page turning, it is captivating, it is suspenseful, it is surprising. Sometimes you will just gasp at the twists and turns in First Lie Wins. Look at everyone coming here so far. It's Katie is here. Hi from Georgia. And Sharon Bishop is here. And Shannon Hansen. Sherry Steuben is here. So nice to see you all. And marvelous to see you, Ashley Elston and First Lie Wins, which is you all. Now, a Reese's pick, a New York Times bestselling novel, and a Book of the Month Club main selection. My darling readers, this is the trifecta. This is exactly what everybody hopes would happen. And Ashley, welcome, welcome, welcome from Louisiana. What did you think when this all just exploded?
Gosh, well, first, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's hard to put into words what you think, because it's like you said, it's the trifecta. It's like you're thrilled to get one of those things, and then you get the two of them, and you're like, gosh, I mean, that's a lot. Like that's a lot. And then you get the third, and it's overwhelming in the best possible way.
Overwhelming in the best possible way is really a marvelous way of putting it. And as an author, I know you spent all that time by yourself writing this novel. And every author has moments when they think, I wonder if anyone will like this. You know, you just don't know until readers read it. What is it like to have Catherine says, heard the buzz, now we want to hear the details. And we will in about 30 seconds. I promise you, Catherine. Thank you for coming. What is it like to hear not only the adulation and selection from people like Reese Witherspoon in the New York Times, but readers who just can't get over how much they love First Lie Wins? What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, as you know, like you said, you're sitting there, you're by yourself, you're writing the story, and you're like, this feels special. I feel like there's something here. This feels good. And, and you write it for the purpose of people reading it. And then you get closer to publication, you're like, oh God, people are going to be reading it. Like as if that was not the purpose. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, what if they hate it? Well, what if they don't? I mean, yes, it's sort of, that mind will just spin on you a little bit, thinking about it. But, the support, the feedback I've gotten has been amazing. So of course it feels so good to say, okay, it felt good writing it. I'm glad the readers are enjoying it. It is, obviously the best thing you can hope for.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. Only a writer's brain could hold both concepts at the same time. Maybe my book is special and wonderful, and maybe it's awful. And it's the same book.
And at any given moment, it's both of those things, right? I mean, like you can be in a horrible edit and you're like, I have ruined this book. Will I be able to come back? No, it's terrible. And then you're like, oh my God, maybe that part's brilliant. I mean, like it's like that swinging back and forth. It's crazy.
And when it works out so gorgeously as it did in First Lie Wins, and look how many people are here. Donna O'Neill says it's definitely on my TBR. And Katie says, just got mine from Book of the Month and can't wait to read it. That is so great. So quickly, before we get into what this book is about and why people love it so much and we'll be careful. We won't give away anything. Let me tell you quickly, welcome, welcome, welcome to Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic, which seems so long ago, or just like yesterday, I'm not sure, by the powerhouse duo of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep us all discovering new books and keep us all reading new books and keep us all meeting our favorite authors and maybe making some new favorites, like perhaps Ashley Elston and First Lie Wins. And we have been going strong with dozens of volunteers, 24/7 programming since then, and we are still going strong into the future. So we are pleased that you you are here. Let me take 10 more seconds, maybe 15, to formally introduce you to Ashley Elston. Ashley Elston is the author of several novels, including The Rules for Disappearing, which was a finalist in the Best Young Adult Novel category of the International Thriller Writer Awards. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. And 10 Blind Dates. I mean, she had a book called 10 Blind Dates. She didn't go on 10, but she might have. We'll have to ask her about that too. Her work has been translated into 23 languages. She graduated with a liberal arts degree from Louisiana State University in Shreveport. Ashley worked many years as a wedding planner before turning photographer, wedding photographer and planner. Wedding photographer, this is my typing error, but you could be a wedding planner too. Wedding photographer before turning her hand to writing. Ashley lives in Louisiana with her husband and children, and congratulations on this marvelous new book. So we want to be careful. But so you tell us it's a story of greed and morality and manipulation and secrets. Talk a little bit about where it came from.
Well, I had finished, done the 6 ways and had 4 that were mystery thrillers, 2 that were rom-com. And it was in the pandemic, and I was like a little bit like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know what I'm feeling. Of course, everybody's at home and you think nothing's going to be normal ever again. And so I was like, well, maybe I'm done. I mean, maybe I don't have another book in me. I mean, maybe that was it. But then I had this idea, and the photography background, I'm very visual. So I'm going to see a scene before I write it. And I had this dinner party scene in my head. I could see the table. I could see the people at the table. And then I started building that conversation. Like, what would they say? And then what if somebody there's kind of shady or lying or up to no good? And so I wrote that scene, and it was exciting, and it was fun. It was different, and it was definitely not YA. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's not YA, but let's just go with it. And I just sort of kind of, well, what if they did this next? Or what if they did this? And I kind of what if'd my way a while until I was like, well, I think this is a story. And I think now let me take a minute and what am I trying to do? But that's really kind of how it came about.
It's so interesting because that opening dinner party scene, and it won't hurt a thing if we talk about it for a minute, and First Lie wins. There's a conversation among a group of people, and there's so much undercurrent in the conversation, and there's so much double entendre, and there's so much sort of fishing and reeling people in and sort of setting the hook and saying things that could mean a couple of other things. Did you know who these people were and who the main character was?
Not when I wrote that scene. I just wrote that scene, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I'm digging it. And, as you know, when you edit, things can change and things can change. But that opening chapter that scene is the opening chapter of the book. And it is almost word for word the way I wrote it the very first time I wrote it. There have been very few changes to that chapter, which I love because Lord knows everything else changed a bunch. But it was sort of that moment where it started is exactly how it was.
The thing about that scene, and throughout, we're not talking about just that scene, but think about the opening dinner scene, which we can talk about a little bit, is there is this massive voice and massive presence in that scene where these people are real people, all of whom have some sort of motivation for what they're saying and what they're meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels sort of, it's very realistic about women and men, but it's about women. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that. Where did that voice come from? Where did that tone come from? Where did that sensibility come from?
Evie was just, I started writing her, and I wrote that scene, and then I was like, let me dig a little bit deeper. Like, who is she? And then I got a little further in, and then I feel like she's kind of up to no good. And I didn't know at first, was she going to be a good guy? Was she a bad guy? Was she somewhere in the middle? But I gave myself sort of that freedom to just let her sort of grow sort of organically. Like, I was open to a crazy right turn if we were going to take a crazy right turn in the story. And, I like the idea that, she's maybe on the wrong side of the law, but she's good at it and she owns it. And she's sort of unapologetic about it. And she's going to maybe climb her own corporate ladder, even if it's a bit illegal, right? But she just was so fun to kind of discover and write.
She's so fun and she's so smart. I mean, you're so wise that she's very good at what she does. And you're saying, I want to be careful here because how would you describe what she is so we can be careful?
I mean, she's a con artist. I mean, she's up to no good. You know, she, you know, has a boss. She gets sent on various jobs, you know, under different names, you know, for different purposes. But, you know, she's on the wrong side of the law.
Okay.
But she still has her own, you know, lines that she won't cross. She
Yes,
owns,
and I agree with you, and I want to talk about both of those things because I think they're, you know, those elements of Evie are so important in First Lie Wins. And one of the reasons that it's so good, it's not just another con artist story, but this has depth and texture and moral grayness. It's a wonderful book club book. It's an amazing book club book because everybody will have something to say about it. But all of readers so much these days talk about it. And I know all of you. Hi, Renee. Hey, Catherine. Hey, Lorraine. Nice to see you all. Irma is here. That's great. I know we hear from readers. I want someone I can root for. I want somebody I can connect with. I want somebody who to be on their side. And to pick a character who is morally gray, was that a risk to you? Did you try to make her, did you think, oh, I don't know if I can do this? Because we love her and we root for her. And as an author, I promise I'll stop talking in a minute. And as an author, I kept saying, you know, Ashley is making me love her. I love her and I shouldn't. So how did you do that?
Well, I just thought, you know, I'm going for it. You know, it's okay. She's kind of bad. And some of the things she does are kind of not great, but I think as long as you can keep that, she still has a sense of right and wrong, even if it would be different than what somebody else's right and wrong would be. She still has that sense. It just falls on a different scale, and she kind of treats it in a different way. So she's just not completely like morally corrupt, right? She's in a different lane. But I mean, yeah,
she started on this path for a reason of love.
Mm-hmm.
And every step she took initially was to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it was sort of desperation. I need some money. I need it quickly. I need it for good reasons. And then, you know, but then she was good at it. And then she's like, well, I mean, I'm good at this. And why shouldn't I get better and better at the thing I'm, you know, already good at? And I wanted her to be very unapologetically good con artist.
And she is. And was that fun to write? Because in order for her to be a good con artist, you have to be a good con artist.
She was so fun to write because you just sort of throw the rule book out the window and just like, I mean, what are we getting up to today? And that's what made it fun. And being open to, you know, kind of getting into a little bit of mischief with her was fun. And she didn't have to be good. She could be kind of bad. And let's just see where that takes us.
But again, you know, in your writer brain, to write a con artist who's very smart, she's covering all bases when she's doing something, and she's juggling quite a bit, some of which we won't even talk about. But you had to figure that out. How did you have a big plan, a big chart, a big whiteboard, stickies? How did you do that?
I am very visual, I think, from those photography days. And so, and for every book, I don't do this at the beginning. I kind of write. And then I get to a point where I'm like, well, let me see what I've done. Mm-hmm. So I have this huge roll of butcher paper and I hang it. And I mean, it'll be like 8 feet or however long I can make it. And then I write every chapter on a sticky note. And so for this book, like one color was the present day and then one color was past. And then I would have notes outside. What day of the week is it to make sure I'm keeping up? Or I've said she's had to drive from here to here. And is that possible in the time frame that I said she did it? And so then when the edits come in and I can put in all of the things that need to change, I want to sit back and I want to look and see the whole book in one sitting. And I want to see, are there lots of notes around one particular part? Because that'll tell me that this part's really struggling. Or, you know, I'll put like, you don't learn this until this part. And so coming in about this, I know I can't really talk about it. And it's just a very visual roadmap for me.
That sounds really wise, because you, as a writer, you're holding 95,000 words in your head the whole time. And, you know, you think, now, when was the first time she talked about her mother? Or when was the first time she talked about Cincinnati? I'm making that up. Because you as the author know so much more than the reader can know.
Right. And it is. And it's like, there's, you don't meet this character until this point. So don't talk about him before now. Or, just it's little things like
Isn't it?
you said in real life, this is happening, like the Kentucky Derby thing. So what day is that happen? It's in May? Is it is it a Saturday? Like make sure that goes along with the calendar that you have for the book. So
Yes. I was going to show you, do I have it here? I have a calendar just like that for my books. It's not very pretty, but I'm going to show you this.
Yeah.
You can see it says like Monday, then this is like, oh no, she didn't do. Now, if you can imagine me, but this is because if you don't, somebody will go to the post office on Sunday, or someone will forget to have dinner, or it'll be dark and you don't have the street lights on, and all those kinds of things that you create to make a real life. And the real life that you made for Evie's life is so visual, and the setting is so great, and the clothing is so wonderful. Talk a little about, is that from your wedding photographer days?
I think so. I do think the photography plays a big part in, I think it was a great, I don't know, sort of tool then to become a writer, because when I was at a wedding reception or a wedding, I'm looking at the whole room. I'm watching everybody. I am picking up, where's grandma? Is she having a sweet moment with the bride? Well, let me make sure I get that. Is she still here? Has she left yet? Where's dad? And it's like this, it's almost like, where is everybody? It's this constant sort of, tracking people through the room. It's, you put them out for pose pictures. Is the veil straight? Is the necklace straight? And so, with one glance, I'm check, 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 check. And I think it gave me sort of an attention to detail that I might not would have had I not had that experience, because, you're with them the whole day, and you're, the end what is the end product on my end? A wedding album. It is telling the story of the day. I mean, we have pictures getting dressed all the way to the car at the end of the night. And you want to be lots of pictures in the important parts, the ceremony or cutting the cake. You've got to be heavy there. Those are big moments. The other stuff, a few little sprinkles, is going to tell the story just fine. And it's that same like weight that you give to a story. What are the big moments? What's taking me from this point to this point? Well, I just need a few little things. And, it goes a little bit more hand in hand than I might would have thought before I started writing.
That's so brilliant. That is one of the most inspirational and instructional things I've ever heard, because we can think of the real world when we're writing that way. And also what goes with that is, you as an author, you can know what to leave out. What part of the picture you don't have to show us to help the reader be so propelled through the book. I mean, I know that I couldn't turn the pages fast enough. I honestly couldn't. We were talking about, if you just arrived, we were talking about First Lie Wins, the blockbuster novel by Ashley Elston, which is just a New York Times bestseller and a Book of the Month Club main selection and a Reese's pick. And Ashley Elston is here talking with us from Louisiana. And I forgot to tell you that we are giving away, Ashley is giving away, because I'm keeping this one. I'm told. Ashley is giving away a copy of First Lie Wins to one lucky commenter. So I hope you will leave a message or adulation or a question. That would be great for Ashley in the chat. And you will be entered to win on the Wheel of Fun as we spin it in about 5 minutes to give away this novel. You alluded earlier to things that happened in the past, the structure, what was present day and what was past. And the structure of this novel is so much fun that you give us an insight into the other parts, the other times in Evie's life. And I don't want to go into it too much, but I thought, whoa, Ashley is having to write several books in miniature within this book. Kim says, "Go, Ashley."
I like that. Yeah.
That's great. You had to write little mini books, almost short stories in the novel, all that weave together so perfectly. Talk a little bit about how you did that.
So I didn't set out to say I'm going to do all these flashbacks and I'm going to have all these other past jobs come into play. But, when I started getting into it and getting serious, like here's my book, I thought, well, let me write a little bit about her beginning. And I wasn't sure if it was even going to make the book. Was it just going to be a writing exercise for me to kind of learn my character? But then I loved it. And I was like, okay, no, that works. And then I would get to parts where I was like, gosh, I'm going to have to give a lot of information about something that happened to her in the past, why she's doing what she's doing right now. But then, okay, well, no, let me show that. Let me show that con and why that con from the past is affecting the con. And so then we started putting them in. So then we get to the edits. My editor were like, is there too many? Are people going to get tired of them? And I'm like, well, what are we getting rid of? Because to me, they're all pretty necessary. So we ended up trimming some of them, but they all stayed. And then I actually added one. I was like, well, I had to add one more. It's got to stay. And it is just, it's trying to find that balance of not too heavy in either way. Every past part had to play a significant role or it couldn't stay. And if I could not have it make a significant impact to the story, I didn't need it. And so that was sort of my guide. If I took this out, does the story suffer? And if the answer was yes, then it stayed.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons that this works so brilliantly is that in every, they're not even almost flashbacks. They're just sort of reveals of something that happened before. And you take us there to her, and we grow with her, and we learn with her, and we understand things with her, and we watch her get smarter and better and more savvy throughout. And in every one of those previous stories, there is a nugget of a thing that she refers to later. So it's so seamlessly put together. And again, so much fun to read. Susie says, I'm really enjoying the book. I shouldn't be here. I should be reading. That is great. That is great. Susie. Congratulations. But you should be here. You completely should be here. One of the things that you mentioned earlier that I kind of want to go back to quickly is, we talk about Evie's moral code. I mean, even as a con artist, one of the reasons we love her so much and connect with her is that there are things she won't do. I mean, there are lines she won't cross, and there are things that she does that she shouldn't, but out of her heart, her big heart. Talk a little bit about that and why you thought that was important and and why.
I do. I think an audience will stay with you. If you have a character and they're on the wrong side of the law, I think they'll stay with you as long as a worse person gets what they deserve, right? But you start hurting people that are innocents and haven't done anything bad. That's when I think you start losing people. And so that was sort of my line is like, well, if they're good, she's going to help them. If they're bad, they're fair game. And it was sort of that kind of feeling. Kind of a Robin Hood, still from the rich. Yeah,
that's what I was just going to say is it's very Robin Hoody, and we love Robin Hood, of course. I mean, I want to make sure that we let the readers know, and so many people are here today. Sherry is here, and Renee is here, and Lori is here, and Robin and Catherine. This is so nice. Suzanne Bernheim is here. Welcome. Says, I look forward to this intriguing book. That's great. Let's make sure that we know that this is a story about a woman in the beginning who's named Evie, who is on the job for someone. Can you just make sure that we get the little précis of the book so we have a little bit of the plot?
Yeah. So, this follows Evie, and she has, worked for the last 10 years under various aliases for a mysterious boss. I mean, she's a con artist, and, but then past mistakes kind of catch up with her, and she realizes that she might be in a little bit more trouble than she thought. And so she has to decide, is she in the middle of pulling a con on somebody, or is she in the middle of a con being pulled on her?
And there you have it. That is perfect. Evie, or whatever her name is given one big job, and it may be her best or it may be her last. And we just don't know. And that's why we're turning the pages. It's so interesting because you were a wedding photographer. And then what was the moment when you thought, I could write a book? I mean, what an audacious thing to think for any of us. Why did you think that? And what was it that made you go into an additional profession? I was going to take a break from photography. I am still on that break. That was in 2009. And so I had my third son, and, when you book a wedding a year in advance, you don't realize you're going to miss your kid's soccer game because, and you can't call your bride and say, today's not really a good day for me. Can we do next week? It just doesn't work like that. And so I was getting a little bit burned out. I was missing a lot of the weekend time. My kids were kind of, in that fun, age, lots going on. And so I was like, I'm just going to take a break. And my husband and I owned a landscape company, and I did the book work. So, I still had my day job. So it wasn't like, I wasn't working, and so I was like,
I'm done. I'm gonna just take a break. But then I think I missed that creative outlet. And I would have moments where the baby was sleeping or I had a little bit of time. And I've always been a big reader, love to read, but I didn't know how to be a writer. I didn't know any writers. And so I had an idea and I just started writing, but I'd have to like go pull a book and be like, oh, okay. So it's like quote, dialogue tag. Oh, okay. I mean, it's like this, self-taught. It was a terrible book. I mean, it was the book I wrote was terrible. It was dumb. There was no plot. I mean, it was just aimless. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the process. And so then I had another idea and I was like, well, I feel a little bit better equipped to tackle this new idea because I kind of think I know what I'm doing now, the mechanics of, actually the book. And so then I wrote my second book, and that was actually the first book that I sold. It was The Rules for Disappearing. So, I mean,
and that was a young adult.
It's dumb luck.
How did it, and congratulations on that. But it was a young adult novel.
It was young adult.
Where did that young adult voice come from?
I have no idea.
Did you?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I was like, this is what it is. And it was like 2011. And they're like, oh, well, this is young adult. And I was like, okay, it's young adult. I mean, like, it's just, I don't know.
When I wrote my very first book in first person, and someone back then said to me, why did you choose to write it in first person? And I'm like, in what?
We had a choice. I didn't know there was a choice. Yeah,
exactly. I never chose. I didn't even know to choose. It just came out that way.
That's how much. Yeah,
and that's kind of magic, isn't it?
It is. I think it is. It's just listening to that, that voice in your head, and writing that story that you have, and just it is what it is.
But there is not a shred of young adult in First Lie Wins. So how did you do that?
Well, when I first wrote that opening scene, I was like, well, these are not teenagers. This is clearly something else. And it's sort of the same when I wrote my first 4 YA mystery thrillers. And then I had this idea for this ridiculous rom-com set at Christmas, and I thought for about half a second, I mean, that's kind of dumb. I mean, like, I'm a mystery thriller writer, right? I'm going to go write but that's my story. That was my idea. I thought, well, I'm going to go with it. And I just kind of treated that the same way. Like, I'm not going to ask myself too many questions. I don't know why all of a sudden I'm writing about adults, but I'm going with it. And I think that helps is sort of allowing yourself that freedom to be like, this actually may not work out, but let's go down the road and see where it takes us.
Our minds are amazing, aren't they? How they know.
Yes. And I bet you gotta forgive yourself that just, maybe it'll be terrible and maybe it won't work. And that's okay too. You just got to give yourself a little bit of grace there, I think, and go with it.
Yeah. And going with it seems to have worked very nicely, Ashley, on the fabulous First Lie Wins. In about 30 seconds, we're going to take questions from the audience. So I know Margaret in the back room is getting those ready. Congratulations again on this. How did you hear about the Reese pick? When do they tell you?
So my editor called me. It was back in October. So I had a big birthday this year. I turned 50 in October. And so it was like right before my birthday. And one of my sons is still had one graduate from Ole Miss, one is still there. And we were headed there for the weekend and big game or whatever. And so they call and say that we got the pick, and you're like, freaking out. But then they're like, but you can't tell anybody. Like, you can't tell anybody. And they're like, I mean, you can tell your husband can your husband keep a secret? And I was like, I don't know if he can keep a secret. I mean, I don't know. And so then it's like, the best news ever that you can't share. So then, we go out of town for the weekend. Of course, smiles plastered on my face the whole weekend. My friends are like, you're taking turning 50. Well, I was like, yes, this is all about turning 50. Like, that's what smiles for. And so it was so great, but it is a hard secret to keep. It really is.
I bet it is, but hard to keep a good secret. And that's marvelous. And now we all know First Lie Wins, a Reese's pick, a New York Times bestseller, and Book of the Month Club main selection. And Ashley is here to answer your questions. Yeah. Right now. So let's see what questions we have. Margaret, who is asking what today? I know we have questions. I've seen you. Is Kathy Lanigan says, is your writing style? Oops. All right. Sylvia, do you ever photograph your Post-it wall as a quilt? As a quilter, it gives me inspiration.
Now that's really cool. So there is a video. So we did a lot of videos, content for the Reese thing, for the month-long stuff that the Reese Book Club does. And I I packed that sucker up and I took it up to New York and I unrolled it out and I did a whole thing. So I think if you go, I think it was on my Instagram, there is an actual video that shows the paper from this book. And I do have some pictures, but I love the idea of it being a quilt. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that idea too. You can envision that, can't you?
Yeah.
What a treasure.
I took a bunch of t-shirts from my boys had from like summer camps and things that they did. And somebody turned it into a quilt, like, you know, like the whatever.
And the logos on the front.
Yes. And I love, but I like that idea. That's pretty cool.
If this writer thing doesn't work out for us, we can make outline quilts. It could work like sentence diagramming. Sherry Stevens says, are there book club questions in the book?
On my website, there's a whole list of questions and topics for a book club. And so you could go there and, you know, get that from there and take that to the book club. So I don't think it's in the book. I mean, they came up with them, but I don't think it's in the book. But it is on my website.
I've seen it on your website, and they're great questions. They're better questions for a group that's read the book.
Absolutely. Oh, there's some spoilers. I mean, like the questions have spoilers, so you know.
So be careful if you haven't read the book.
Yeah.
That's great. Who else? Shannon Hansen says, oh, here we go. Margaret in the back room and I both have the con on these questions, so we can both click. So we're choosing different ones. Maria Alicia Cruz Figueroa, welcome, welcome, welcome. What is your writing space like, and can you describe a typical writing day?
Okay, so I used to just sort of write all over my house. Like sometimes I'm at the kitchen counter, you know, the bar area, or sometimes I'm on the couch. And then, so we live out in the country a little bit. Like we have row crops on 3 sides of us, and so we're on a water well system for, you know, because we have not on city water. So we have a well house that the well is in, but the other side of it was a storage room. And I took the storage room over and I glammed it out, and it's got a little chandelier and it's just a little tiny space, but it is mine. And so now I have this perfect little writing area, and it's all cutesy, you know, and so I love it.
Is that on Instagram as well?
I think we did a video of that as well. Oh, and then typical writing day. I have no typical writing days. Some days I write, sometimes I don't. You know, sometimes I write at night, sometimes I write in the morning. It is when I feel it, I sit down and write. If I'm not feeling it, I don't, because that's never productive, and it is just very random for me. I don't recommend, but
I was going to say, that sounds so scary, but it shows you that everybody has their own way of doing it. And when you find that way, that's your way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't do it anybody else's way.
Mm-hmm.
Anissa says, hi, Anissa says, was this the original title? And I love how she explains in the book what that means. Talk a little bit about that.
That is the original title. We did think of something else for a little while, but we all went back to, you know, when we sold it, but we all went back to First Line Wins. So when titles are hard. And so when you trying to think about a title, I think I started Googling, you know, sayings with lies in it. And, you know, you start looking at really random things. And I had run across an article written about the show Catherine the Great. I have not seen the show, but, you know, in the show, poor Catherine has a pretty terrible rumor circulating. I'll let y'all Google that. But, and she can never get ahead of it. Like somebody said it once, they believed it, and there it stuck. And somebody, you know, and first lie wins is kind of an old saying, but somebody in the show says, you know, well, you know, how the first lie wins, you know, nothing else can beat it, or however they said it. And I was like, God, I really love that idea. And then if you start thinking about it, you know, people in politics and on social media, you know, can say some outrageous things, but you say it with confidence and you say it loudly and you say it with authority, and people are like, oh yeah. And you're like, well, that's the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. But people believe it because the way it is said, and it is said where it sort of brokers no argument. Right. And so that's sort of how she treats it. Like, if I can get you on my first big, you know, here's my story, then I've got you. And that's kind of how she does it.
Yeah, perfect title. And I love in the book when she explains it too. It's really quite marvelous. Who else has a question? I think we have time for a couple more. What character, Shannon Hansen says, what character did you have the most fun writing?
I mean, Evie was fun. I mean, she was a lot of fun. Devin was a really fun character, kind of breaking down who he is and his background. Mr. Smith, I mean, he's, you know, I love good bad guys. So, I mean, he was kind of fun to write too.
And really diabolically well written, I have to say. That was a juggle. That was a tour de force you all. And you will know what we're talking about when you read First Lie Wins. So one more question. Do we have time for one more question before we spin the wheel of fun to find out who will win a copy of this book? Let's get Nancy. Oh, I'm so sorry. Margaret and I are doing this at the same time. We'll never do this way again. Nancy says, will your next book be adult or young adult?
Adult. I'm got an idea. It's kind of marinating. I'm in the very beginning, fun. Where are we going? What's this about? But it's adult. I'm like the space. Ready to stay here for a while. So, not to say I won't ever go back to young adult, but gonna stay here a while, I think.
Yes, indeed. It seems to be working. It seems to be working. Congratulations, Ashley Elston.
Thank you so much.
First Lie Wins. Let's spin the wheel of fun and see who wins a copy of this book. And let's see, we will spin. This is so exciting, totally exciting. We'll see what happens. And the winner is Deborah Press. That's so marvelous. Congratulations.
So fun. I love that.
Isn't that hilarious? Margaret in the background came up with that, and I love it every time. I keep wanting to hum like the Jeopardy theme.
I know, right? And it got slower and slower, and you're like, oh my gosh.
It's the suspense. It's the suspense.
Yes,
well, this book does not get slower and slower. It gets faster and faster, and I enjoyed it so much. Stay there for one. Thank you. Stay there for 1 second, Ashley, while I just tell you all, next Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET, I will be talking to Edwin Hill, who wrote this incredible, brilliant novel, Who to Believe. And it is surprising and twisty and so different from First Lie Wins, and it shows you all the different kinds of novels that we have here on Crime Time. Very, very different, but equally propulsive and equally immersive and absolutely great. And you will adore Edwin Hill too. He is just a rock star. As Margaret says, Deborah Press, congratulations. You are the winner. I almost held up the wrong book of First Lie Wins. Email me and I will email our executive producer, who will email Ashley's publisher, who will email Ashley, and Ashley will send the book, and then the publisher will send the book, and then I will send it, and you'll get it. I promise you, Deborah, through all the channels, you will get your book, and we're so pleased you're here. Now, finally, Ashley, thank you for coming. You're amazing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about your next book too. Such fun times, but this has been a joy. So thank you.
Thank you. We loved having you. Congratulations. And thank you all. We loved having you all too here today. So many of you came, and you know how much I love that. So we will see you next Tuesday for Edwin Hill. And until then, remember, it is always safe inside a book. And we love you so much.